This tutorial aims to give you an introduction to the Institute of Acoustics Diploma in Acoustics and Noise Control, and to give you some understanding of what is involved in taking and passing the various parts of the diploma course. The photographs you see here were taken during laboratory sessions in Liverpool for candidates taking the tutored distance learning version of the diploma, which we'll learn more about later. The Institute of Acoustics Diploma in Acoustics and Noise Control is intended to provide sufficient specialist academic training to satisfy the educational requirements for corporate membership of the Institute of Acoustics. The diploma has been offered since 1975, and to date more than 2,500 candidates have gained a diploma, and most of these have then gone on to gain the 3 or more years of professional experience required to become corporate members of the Institute. To obtain the diploma, you need to pass 3 compulsory modules: the General Principles of Acoustics module, the Laboratory module, and the Project module. And you need to take 2 specialist modules chosen from Building Acoustics, Environmental Noise, Noise and Vibration Control Engineering, and Regulation and Assessment of Noise. There are 2 routes for studying for the diploma. One of them is centre-based. At present, there are 4 accredited centres at the universities of Derby, Leeds Beckett, London South Bank, and Solent. They require attendance for 1 day per week, usually, and they spread the experiments for the laboratory module through the first term. The other route is through tutored distance learning. This involves self-study of course notes supported by 10 face-to-face or online tutorials. There are 5 for the General Principles of Acoustics module, which is described in the next slide, 4 for the specialist modules, and 1 for revision. There are 3 distance learning centres at Edinburgh, Dublin, and Milton Keynes. The distance learning programme requires attending laboratory classes in Liverpool, Dublin, or Dubai. Candidates registered for the tutored distance learning version of the diploma are given access to a range of materials and learning aids online through the IOA Moodle classroom. This can be used for online access to tutorials in the form of video presentations with commentaries, in addition to the live tutorial classes. The diploma takes a little over a year from initial classes in September to final project submission in October the following year. If a case is made before starting the diploma, it may be possible to spread it over 2 years, but we don't encourage this. You will have to resit any parts you fail at the first attempt in the following year. Normally, marks for assessments that are passed can be carried over for only 1 year. If, for some reason, a 3rd year is needed, then the assessments for all previously failed modules have to be taken again. But note, there's a limit of 5 years from initial registration for completing the diploma. This is to make sure that the content has not become outdated. The General Principles of Acoustics module is the longest, since it introduces all of the ideas, definitions, and concepts that are needed for subsequent work. It's a first introduction to topics like the fundamentals of sound, sound propagation, sound measurement, sound absorption, sound insulation, noise indices, and noise and vibration control. It covers many of the topics that are pursued in more depth in the specialist modules. Unit 1 on basic concepts and principles, and Unit 4 on sound propagation are longer than the other units. The detailed syllabus is available on the IOA website. There are 2 coursework assignments. Usually one is more numerical and the other is more discursive, and they have deadlines in December and in the following March. These 2 assignments contribute 40% of the final mark for the module. That's 20% each. They are marked by a local course tutor. The questions and the marking schemes are provided by the Institute's examiners. The assignments test the ability to carry out relevant calculations to an extent that would not be reasonable under examination conditions, and to encourage reading outside of the course material. Whenever possible, they exploit topical interests. For example, the assignment on sonic weapons was set in the same year that there were media claims that staff in the American embassy in Cuba had been subjected to sonic weapons of some sort. And an assignment on underwater sound effects on marine mammals was set in the same year that this topic was receiving a lot of media attention. There's a 3-hour written examination in early June. The examination has 2 parts. Part A consists of 8 compulsory short answer questions intended to cover a large part of the syllabus. You have to gain 50%, that's 20 out of the 40 marks available, to pass this section. Part B consists of 5 longer questions, from which you have to answer 3. The exam mark accounts for 60% of the final mark for this module. There's a 30% pass threshold on any assessment component, which means at least you can count a coursework mark only if it's 30% or more. Actually, if you need to carry over a coursework mark as part of a resit, it would be better to carry over a rather higher mark than 30%. In Part B of the examination, you need to score at least 18 of the 60 marks available. To obtain a merit on the General Principles of Acoustics module, you need to obtain a conflated or aggregate mark of 70% or more. The experiments for the laboratory module depend on the facilities at the centre. The list of experiments here is that appropriate to the laboratory work carried out by distance learning candidates at Liverpool. You have to carry out all of the experiments, recording the raw data and any example calculations in the laboratory notebook provided. You can gain up to 10 marks for a diligently completed notebook. You have to write up 4 of the experiments as full reports. Only the best 3 report marks count in the final mark for the module, which has to be 50% or more to pass. The notes for the laboratory module explain the expected format of the laboratory reports and contain the associated marking scheme, which is shown again here. The laboratory notebook can contribute up to 10 marks. Note that to obtain a merit on the laboratory module, you'll need to gain a mark of at least 7 out of 10 for the notebook, as well as 70% or more for the reports. The specialist module on building acoustics has the 9 sections listed here, relating to methods for controlling and designing room acoustics, sound and vibration transmission, aspects of building services, noise, and electroacoustics. The methods are illustrated with the help of case studies. The specialist module on environmental noise has the 11 sections covering descriptions, standards and legislation related to transport noise sources, including road traffic, railways and aircraft, as well as construction, wind farms, entertainment and leisure noise. The specialist module on noise and vibration control engineering also has 11 sections, covering noise control methodology and strategy, noise related to building services, outdoor and indoor sound propagation, and common methods of machine noise control, including enclosures. These are followed by a list of further reading. The specialist module on regulation and assessment of noise has 9 sections, covering legislation and standards relating to noise nuisance, transportation noise, noise prediction and mapping, environmental impact assessment, integrated pollution prevention and control, workplace noise, and entertainment noise. And there is an appendix offering professional guidance on planning and noise. Each specialist module has a single coursework assignment which contributes 40% of the final mark for the module. Typically, the specialist modules are taught in the second semester at centres. Not all modules are offered for centre-based candidates, since it depends on demand and the availability of suitable tutors. However, all modules are available through the tutored distance learning route. There's a 2-hour written examination in June for each specialist module, which contributes 60% of the final mark for the module. Both the coursework and the examination are marked by specialist module examiners. To pass the module requires a conflated mark of 50% or more, and no less than 30% on any section of the examination, which means you need to gain at least 12 out of 40 for Part A and 18 out of 60 on Part B. Also, you need to obtain at least 30% for the assignment. The project is undertaken from February to October, and marks are gained for 3 compulsory elements: the proposal, the project conduct, and the final report, the latter being the most important. Another compulsory element is a draft report, but no marks are given for this. More detail about the project is given in the second tutorial in this diploma overview. To cope with the diploma, it's important that you check your background in mathematics and physics, particularly if you haven't looked at the relevant ideas recently. The minimum list of topics with which you need to be familiar is listed here. You need to be familiar with the use of brackets, powers and indices, manipulating formulae, and you need a basic grounding in physics. And you need reasonable computer literacy too. You're provided with a formula sheet for the examinations, so you don't have to remember these particular formulae. But these examples of formulae from the formula sheet show the type of equations that you'll need to be able to read, understand, and manipulate. The important dates for the diploma start with the registration deadline in September. Preferably, full payment for the tutored distance learning option is required by October the 15th. However, it is possible to pay in 2 or 3 instalments, in which case 15th of October is the deadline for the first instalment. Access to the distance learning course materials on the IOA Moodle Classroom is restricted until the October payment has been received by the IOA Accounts Department. Centre-based candidates have payment deadlines set by the centre. Tutored distance learning candidates who elect to take laboratories in Liverpool will have their first section in November and their second 2-day session in the following February. The 2nd of December is the deadline for specialist module selection. The 2nd of December is also the deadline for specialist module resit fee payments. Tutored distance learning candidates who elect to take laboratories in Dublin or Dubai will have a 4-day session in January. If you pay in instalments for the tutored distance learning version of the diploma, the second payment deadline is the end of January. The deadline for the project proposal is in February. And if you're paying in 3 instalments for the tutored distance learning version of the diploma, the final payment must be made by the end of April. As mentioned before, the written examinations are over 2 days in June. The deadline for the draft project report has to be arranged with your project tutor, but in no event will it be later than the 15th of August. The exam and coursework marks are moderated by the chief examiner and the other diploma examiners in August, and results for all the modules except the project are issued before the end of August. The deadline for the final project report is in the middle of October. These are marked by local tutors and the project examiner, and that means that final results are not made available until December. Here are the pass rates for various diploma modules for the last 10 years. Typically, at least 70% of those who register obtain the diploma. Although the diploma is postgraduate, since the normal entry requirements is a relevant degree, It has not been externally validated as a PG dip. Consequently, diploma holders can't use the postnominals PG dip. On the other hand, the diploma is accepted as the educational requirement to become an associate member of the Institute, and eventually, after gaining the required professional experience, MIOA. The majority of the diploma content is at master's level, and the diploma enables advanced standing of 90 credits on some MSc courses listed in the next slide. Many consultants will require new members of staff without previous experience of acoustics to undertake the diploma, and eventually to seek corporate membership of the Institute. Many job vacancies specify that applicants should hold the diploma. Also, the diploma can be used to give advanced standing, equivalent to the first year, on acoustically related 2-year MSc courses at Derby, London South Bank, Solent and Leeds Beckett universities. The next slide mentions that the diploma offers a route also to chartered engineer status. Diploma graduates who obtain 3 merits, including a merit on the General Principles of Acoustics module, typically a merit grade on this module requires a conflated mark of at least 70%, may be considered to have met the M-level educational requirements for achieving Chartered Engineer (CEng) status through the Institute of Acoustics. CEng will also require that candidates have an accredited 3-year degree in a relevant subject, or an equivalent qualification. Here's a picture of the certificate you get when you pass the diploma. The diploma involves a lot of hard work, but opens up many opportunities for interesting careers in acoustics. Good luck with it. Please make use of the Diploma Handbook, in which all of this information and more is available.